The second quality that we find here as we go through this short passage is that a great steward church has right attitudes. It has right attitudes. The churches in Macedonia had three attitudes that were really healthy. They realized, number one in your notes, that giving is a matter of priorities, not a matter of problems. Verse 2 says that these Christians were greatly afflicted, but they gave not according to their personal problems, but instead according to their priorities. You see, a danger to being a good steward is if we're not careful, we'll begin to look at our own personal problems or our collective church problems and the issues and that we're behind in finances or whatever, and we'll allow those problems to keep us from being the good stewards that God intends for us to be and from reaching our potential. People say, well, Pastor, Pastor, you know, I'd love to give, but I have so many problems. I just can't meet anybody else's need. I just need to get my own act together. Well, yes, you do. But it's true that we are always going to have a certain amount of problems. Amen? How many of you can think of at least one problem that you have today? Let me see your hands. I have a problem. I have problems. Boy, some of you don't have problems. Praise the Lord. I want to meet you. I want to find out how this is working out for you. Okay, so yeah, I mean, that's a fact of life. We're always going to have, we all have them. But the day that we allow our problems to control our stewardship is the moment we limit ourselves. The churches in Macedonia had some real problems. They had a great trial affliction, yet they were not about to let their problems limit their stewardship. Here's another great attitude. The churches in Macedonia looked at giving as a matter of willingness, not a matter of wealth. It's a matter of willingness. You see, they saw giving, and they saw that it had everything to do with a willing attitude, and that it had nothing to do with wealth. I want us to understand that principle right there. If you only remember one thing today, it's this next statement. Stewardship has nothing to do with wealth. Every time I talk about stewardship, somebody says, oh, there he goes again. He's going to talk about money, money, money. You know what? Forget money for a minute. Just forget about money for a minute. Being a good steward has nothing to do with how much wealth we have or don't have. Because God is not interested in what we have. God is interested in what we are doing with what we have. That's why I love the special song Contagious Faith sang for us about David. What are you doing with what you have? Don't be thinking about the opportunities we don't have yet. Think about the place we already are and what are we doing with what God's already given us. You see, it has nothing to do with how many resources we have. I run into people all the time who say, well, you know, I'd love to be a great steward. And oh, I tell you, Pastor, if I ever, have you ever heard that one? If I ever win the lottery, if God ever gave me $1 million, I'd give half of it to Him. Boy, have I heard that. But you see, it has nothing to do with what you may have way out there somewhere, if I ever get. No, it kind of reminds me of the conversation that a pastor had with a guy in his congregation. The guy said, man, Pastor, if I had $1 million, I'd give half of it to God. The pastor said, well, what about if you had $500,000? Would you give half of it to God? I sure would, Pastor. Well, what about if you had 1,000 horses? Would you give half of them to God? Yes, Pastor, I'd give half of them to God. Well, what about if you had only 500 horses? Would you give half? Sure, Pastor, I'd give half to God. Pastor said, well, what about if you had 2 cows? Would you give half to God? Guy said, well, wait a minute, Pastor, that's not fair. You know I have 2 cows. Hey, let's not get personal with this, right? Let's not get personal with this. You see, giving has everything to do with a willing heart, not a wealthy pocketbook. Nothing at all. God cares less whether you have a little or a lot. He cares less. He could care nothing at all about that. What he cares about is what you're doing with your little or your lot. If you're a multimillionaire, wonderful, wonderful. God's got a question for you. What you doing with your possessions? If you're poor, Wonderful, wonderful. Well,